All right, everybody, what is up? Hello, hello. Welcome to the Loki episode 2 spoiler discussion talk and all that good stuff. As you can see, this time around we got Goss back.
Yay.
He wasn't able to make it for episode 1, unfortunately, because he was in the middle of just being in New York.
Oh yeah, I was in New York for like 3 days. I just moved to Virginia from Texas, so when I came out here, my family took everybody out to New York for a couple days. It was pretty hype.
Yeah, so glad to have Goss back for this episode 2. He did end up watching episode 1, so I guess before we get into episode 2, Goss, real quick, just like in one sentence, what'd you think of episode 1?
Interesting. Um, it was very interesting. I got the first thing that I felt from the episode was like super strong Umbrella Academy vibes.
Uh huh.
Um, Especially with the whole like where Loki's like watching the clock tell him like how the TVA works and shit, and like all about like the timeline stuff. If you've ever watched Umbrella Academy, that's also a very big thing. There's like a time police in Umbrella Academy, so this is very much kind of in that same vein where there's like a uh, this weird thing that corporation, I guess, or whatever, that like keeps the piece of time, if you will.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
but it was cool.
I definitely think that both in the first episode and in this one, it's like the show is very aware that we have to kind of learn a fuck ton of shit. Like
Yeah,
they're like we got all these terms and we got all this like rules and how it works and we got to cover all of our bases because we're introducing so much shit to the process of the show and the world of Marvel Universe. And so it's like you can kind of tell sometimes, or in this episode when they're at the Renaissance Fair, and then they're like, "Did you watch the tutorial, like the training videos?" And then Loki's like, "Yeah, Nexus events, blah blah blah." And then the guy's like, "Oh, what are these?" And he's like, "Oh, it's very obvious that they're kind of like using Loki as a way to help the audience understand what's going on, why does it work the way it does, and but they still do try to kind of like TLDR it
yeah,
so then like Loki's kind of like dismissive and he's like yeah I watched them some of them blah blah blah, and so it's like we're learning but we're still not getting the full picture, and then whenever we get into things that are like a little too big of a topic they usually like dismiss it by being like, well, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but yeah, sure. And so yeah,
yeah.
I guess episode 2 kicks off with a another. It's funny because after E3 and getting the Guardians of the Galaxy video game debut trailer, we just heard this song, but
Oh yeah.
we get "I Need a Hero" starts playing, and which is, I don't know how, like
I was
me
gonna say
personally.
it felt weird. It felt weird to watch it in that setting, like because it's usually for like when they put that and stuff. It's usually for like when the main character is like doing some badass shit,
Yeah.
right? Like like in Shrek, right? Like it's fucking,
Mhm.
it's like a scene where like Shrek is like fucking going in, like he's like, fuck that, like, and he's ready, and like all this shit's going down. Like
Yeah.
same thing with Guardians of the Galaxy, right? It's like during the E3 trailer, it
Hmm.
was like a bunch of good guys like beating up on the bad guys, and then like in this one it's hella the opposite of that. So
Yeah, exactly.
it feels really it felt really weird.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think what they were trying I think what they were trying to convey was that like the people TVA agents that were there, that Agent 20 was supposed to be some like redeemed or like kind of like revered agent or something.
Yeah,
Um I think like the song's supposed to convey that these are the heroes, and then the villain ends up mind controlling one of them. So like, oh, you want to play hero? Okay, well here's your theme song. Come on, hero, save the day. Like I think it was trying to like play it out in that way. At least that's how I interpreted it. But I do think
Yeah,
overall my feeling was like after the scene ended and then it went to black and then we got like the Loki title card and it was leading into the episode. I said out loud to Brawley, I was like, that was kind of weird. Like I don't know if
yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, I don't know if I really like, if that was needed or if I don't know what they were. It wasn't a clear message that of what they were trying to do with that. But I mean, it's a great song, so like,
Yeah, that's what I saw too. Like I thought about it and I was like, this is really weird. And
yeah,
then and the same things I had the exact same thought. I was like, but that's a dope song. So
yeah,
that intro was fucking cool. Like, you know?
yeah. Um, but I mean, before we move on from this one, I do want to say, can we just like, just get the rights to the Shrek 2 version of that song? And can we start using that one in our movies and in our
Right.
shows?
That'd be kind of cool.
Like I just think like that one's it's one of those things. I mentioned it in our E3 watch along or whatever. I was like I see this topic come up on Twitter all the time when they're like, "Oh, what's a song that a cover of a song that's better than the original?" And like everyone always posts the Shrek 2 I Need a Hero from the Fairy Godmother. They're always saying
Mhm.
like, "Oh yeah, this one like she owns it," and yeah, I definitely think we should get to the point where we start hearing that version from now on. But
Great.
you have
I
anything
agree.
to add on to that, Brawley, before we move on?
It was oddly put. I don't know. Just it was kind of like what God says. Just didn't fit the scene very well. Because she's taking them out, and I mean, art like what I could gather a little bit is maybe they're doing it. Like it's kind of like what Loki says. I won't go too much into detail of the scene. This scene is probably the best scene in the show. But when he tells Mobius, not every good person's truly good, and not every bad person's truly bad. Maybe it's trying to hint at us that maybe to some people this Loki variant is a hero. And
Yeah,
maybe
yeah, I can
it's
see
a
that.
different way of seeing things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it. Cause yeah, it definitely I do get that vibe, especially towards the end of the especially towards the end of the episode. Obviously, I don't want to get into it just yet, but there's things that lead you to believe that yeah, like you can kind of like have an inkling of a I guess a hint that maybe uh, there's more to this variant that is just not like, oh, I'm just being disruptive because I'm a variant Loki. Um, but yeah, I guess moving on from there, we get so basically we had Loki go out because Mobius wants Loki's insight on how to catch himself, basically. And he wants some sort of like gateway to understanding Loki, and he ends up saying it in his little interview with what the name of the woman who's in charge. Her name's like Ravona or something like that.
Wait, yeah, something like
Rovena
that.
or Ravona or something like that.
Yeah,
She like he's like basically pleading to her, saying like, hey, like let me I'm going off of a hunch and I've got this like a good feeling about this Loki and all this other stuff, and so he basically is getting him out there to go on the field with him to get an insight on Loki and try to understand Loki while he's trying to understand the other Loki. So it's a lot of just like trust is used a lot in this episode, and there's a lot of like writing on hunches, writing on good faith. And so we end up getting this whole scene in the Renaissance Fair after the opening sequence where they get basically killed and stuff. Um, Loki's trying to stall for time in a way where he's also trying to be misleading with them because he wants to see the timekeepers. And he's basically saying like, oh, don't leave this tent, so you're going to get in trouble out there. Like they're waiting. The other Loki, the inferior Loki's waiting for you out there. And so what we should do is we should go straight to the timekeepers and talk to them. And so it's just Loki, you know, trying to do what he can to manipulate and get around the just trying to be smarter than the people around him. And so how'd you guys feel about how all that was handled? Because we basically have Mobius call him out and be like, no, he's lying. You know, let's just clear this up and get out of here.
So for me, that was really the first moment in the show so far that I really, you're like, well, at least for me, it was very much like, oh, okay, Mobius is on his shit. Like, this isn't just some dude who like you know that Mobius like really knows how to deal with Loki, because the whole time I was thinking like, oh, like, I mean, I was along for the ride, right? And usually when Loki does stuff, it's kind of like, as a viewer, you don't, the way that he was, especially in the movies, you didn't really know that he was that, oh, that's Loki, you know, especially if it was like, if he was pretending to be somebody else or whatever. Like, it was sometimes, like, I mean, there were times where it was like blatantly obvious, but there was also times where you were like, oh shit, like, or he would pretend to be there, but he's like not really there, you know what I mean, or like shit like that.
Yeah, I definitely think that's probably one of me personally, that's one of my favorite, like, one of the things that I love the most about Loki's character was that both Tom Hiddleston and just the writing for Loki, it's such a huge line of like really endearing and like believing in him, but then also like he can just fucking betray you, like, you know, he doesn't care. And I definitely think that Mobius, at least in this sequence here, he definitely caught on, and he was just like, nah, I'm not falling for this shit.
It was like the first time outside of like anybody in Asgard, maybe except for like, I would say, man, I don't even know. I would have to say the only people in the entire Marvel universe that you actually really see that can kind of sort of see through Loki's tricks is Thor. So this is the first time that you've really seen anybody in the Marvel universe like stop, like, it straight up just like stop Loki in his tracks, like completely. And it wasn't even, it was straight up like, dude, I know you're lying, like, stop.
I mean, it definitely helps in Mobius's favor because he literally says, I've studied your life, like, I literally seen everything that you're capable of. I've seen what you've done. I've seen what, like, you know, who you've betrayed. I know what you're capable of. So like it helps him in that sense, because he's got that sort of like textbook knowledge on this guy. He's got the frame data. But
he's got the frame data.
But Brawley, so was there anything like earlier on in the show, like leading up, even after the Renaissance, or anything that you want to pinpoint before we move on?
You know, I think it's so odd because I guess as a viewer, you're supposed to led to believe that Loki needs to like pretty much accept this is his life as a TVA agent. I guess that's what he is. Like, I don't know. It's one of those that he's kind of in that, you know, trapped between I'm still a villain, but I'm caught and I'm supposed to do what these guys want me to do. And it's so, like, I don't know, it just feels like things are moving pretty fast, and you know, like, we don't really get enough time of him, you know, having to, it's kind of like they just put this character in the office, right? And here you go, read these files, do these things, you know, help us catch Loki. Basically the reason why Mobius is protecting, right? And so because, like, for me, what confuses me a little bit is, like, they never really had the urgency to get him, and I think this is what confuses me. And I don't want to say too much now. I want to say it more toward the later discussion. But I think, you know, right now at a place in the beginning, you know, you have him listening to Miss Minutes, you have him reading files, and he's kind of like, I don't really want to do this, because he wants to gain something. And I really like the dynamic of him and Mobius. Mobius is kind of like trying to manipulate him, but he knows it's not gonna work, and Loki knows he's trying to do it too with the whole, calling him a little boy, or patronizing him, or giving him something to desire, like the timekeepers, blah 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 blah. So it's just trying to like outwit each other in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously he has no power in TVA. Kind of like we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think I really like their duo. Whenever they're both on screen, it's always
I want to flash forward a little bit, not completely, but jumping off of what you said. Basically, I think, yeah, just the chemistry between Owen Wilson's character Mobius and Loki and Tom Hiddleston is really good. Like they really work off each
Yeah, it really
other.
is.
They work off each other really well, and Owen Wilson's character, like I don't know, people have this thing where like you've seen Owen Wilson in so many movies that it's just like, oh, it's Owen Wilson playing so and so, but he's really doing really well in this character. It's very believable. He feels like he's like this passionate time cop guy, and so we get this whole sequence where he's trying to convince his boss that, hey, I'm working on this whole Loki thing, and I really feel like he could make it happen. And she basically says, like, I'm gonna give you one more shot, like you have your last chance with Loki, and if not, then that's it. And he's like, okay, that's all we need, and we're good. And so he kind of, you can kind of see Mobius getting a little bit out of his element in this like small part of the show, because he's getting a little snappy with Loki, and he's saying like, oh, you're a shivering, scared child, and like he's giving him this whole talk saying like, you're gonna, you could either do something here, and there's this option where you can actually like be part of this and like actually want to help the timeline, or you can just kind of like do it because you want to be better than this other Loki. And so it shows that Mobius knows Loki really well, and he's trying to play he's trying to poke holes in this little front that Loki puts up, and he's trying to say like, I know what you're trying to get at. You're trying to meet the sacred timeline people because you want to like overthrow them, or you want to take over and make it your own. And then he's like, but you also deep down just don't want to be the inferior Loki. Like you're just too prideful. Blah blah. And so just like, so we get this whole thing where he's basically saying, Loki, get to work. Like you got to do your thing and look at these files. I'm gonna go have some food. And so Loki's sitting there, and we have some funny scenes where like the lady's like shushing him, and we get all this whole part of the show was so good. And it's funny because episode 1, when Broly and I were talking about it, our favorite part, well, at least my favorite part, was the conversation that Mobius and Loki were having in that room with the little projector. Like that whole sequence in the first episode was so like compelling, and like you're kind of like really invested in this conversation that they're having. And so we kind of I got the same exact feeling in this episode, because as soon as Loki gets his like revelation of this, and it's really, really smart, and it's very like thought-provoking, but Loki gets this revelation where he's just like, if there is a natural disaster, or if there's like just basically like a meteor, a volcano exploding, if a planet blows up, there's literally nothing matters about what you do within those like moments. He's like, if you can go in there and you can start a fire, you can go in there and you can like push Hulk off the Rainbow Bridge. It doesn't matter because the world's gonna blow up. So he ends up finding out that we're gonna find this variant Loki hiding in the moments before an apocalypse, or like something that's gonna be devastating to that area, and the TVA won't ever be able to pick it up, because in their eyes they're like, oh well, this happens in this timeline, and we there's no sort of like discrepancy in the timeline because everything blew up. That's what's supposed to happen. And so it's really smart, and it definitely I never thought about something like that. And how did you guys feel about this whole like segment here where Loki like figures this out, and then they kind of like bring it up to the director and stuff?
Well, it's all part of his plan. I believe it's always like he has a goal, and like the way you have to perceive Loki at this time is it's always been in his character. Like anytime he's trapped, anytime he's caught, anytime he's under someone else's thumb, his goal is to reverse the role, right? Is to get something better.
Yeah.
And I've noticed, and I feel like this is another way where, like you're led to believe, or you have to believe, like, okay, is Loki doing this to, help Mobius? Is he really trying to help Mobius? Or is he just trying to look out for himself, get something to where gain their trust, go see the timekeeper, enact his plan, whatever his plan is.
Mm-hmm.
And he the idea was great. Using the apocalypses was smart because you get to it makes sense, it doesn't matter what I do, right? I can, take a dump on the middle of the street and everybody can see me. It doesn't matter. Everything's not going to exist after that. So, nothing's going to really matter. So it's a good idea how to track down the variant. And it just shows off more about how, Mobius was right into using Loki or to enlisting its help to catch this other Loki.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's, it was a good scene. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
I think the standout part for me, from all that I talked about, is yeah, just that part where you can see Mobius. He goes up and he's like hyping everything up, and it's after the talk, but he goes and talks to the director and says like, oh look, like I'm actually amped up. Like, when have you seen me like this in a while? Like I'm I'm really sure that this is what's happening. But the part that stood out to me was this conversation that Loki and Mobius had before then, um, where they're talking about, like, Loki again is bringing up the time lizards, and he's like, I can't believe you believe in this. And Mobius is just like, well, you believe in, Odin and frost giants and, the god of thunder and stuff like that. You see how weird and wacky that sounds, but you believe in it so much. And it was such a, like, again, it's like conversations like these where you actually get to have like breakdowns of characters' mindsets and how they perceive things. It's so interesting and so like just good. It's so awesome to see it unfold because it's very thought provoking. Like that whole scene where Mobius is just like, oh, I was created and this is where I'm at, and I believe in what I'm doing here. And he's kind of giving a layout of like, yeah, the time we're preserving the past and making sure things flow properly, so then the timekeepers can do their thing. And then, like, of course Loki has his disagreements with that, and he says like, oh, oh, they're just being lazy, they're taking their time with this, blah blah. And it's just like, it's very cool because it's true. It's like, Mobius says that you need purpose for your existence, and like, all his reasoning for why he does what he does. And then Loki just says, okay, and then what? Like, you want to lead into preserving all this, timekeepers fix it, and then what? And he's just like, and then we'll have, just calm serenity or whatever. And then Loki's like, okay, and no chaos. So you really think that's fun? And it's something so minuscule as a jet ski, and like, Mobius is just like, yeah, a jet ski would be awesome, but I just can't do that. Like, that wouldn't work out for an agent like me to do something like that. And it's just like, it's so many themes of like, living life, but then doing your duty, and then existence and all this other shit. It's such a great scene, really good writing, I think. How'd you guys feel about all that?
What do you think, Toss?
I mean, the writing. I think I really want to like emphasize the writing in the show. Period. To be honest, the writing in the show is so fucking good. Just even like even those small interactions between Loki and Mobius are like, they're just so well written. Like, It's really funny because I'm always like I'm always expecting Owen Wilson to go like oh like like to do the Owen Wilson shit,
Yeah.
but he doesn't. He
I
really
want one
owns the
wow. By the
character.
end of all of this, I want one wow. I just want him to be like,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Like
Gosh.
but yeah, but he really plays into the character. Like the character was written so well. I think I
Yeah.
don't know. The writing is really good.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the writing is really good when it matters, but I think overall, like, there's some parts that are kind of like, you know, lackluster. I really don't know why, but just the main security guard woman, just something about her part in this show just feels so forced, and I really just don't enjoy her scenes because it's just one of those like over the top, oh, I'm the hard ass cop, and nothing's gonna get past me. But then she always like fails, and it's just like I really don't know what's like. She's been in both episodes so far, and like had lengthy parts in both. But I'm really curious as to is there more to that character, or is she there just to be a means to an end? Like she's supposed to move plots around to where she has to keep Loki, in check more than what Mobius is doing. But I don't. It's like one of those. You know how there's like army movies, or there's like if you're watching like a space alien horror movie, and then there's like a platoon of like army guys. There's always that one army guy that's just an asshole for no reason.
They're
It's
gonna be
like
looking for army guys.
it's like that character type that's just like I don't know. I've always had a problem with that kind of like character where they're just overly like I'm a hard ass and I take my job seriously and I'm gonna be mean to you, and it's just like I wish there was more to the character. So far there hasn't really
I
been
mean,
much.
you're right in the sense, but look what happened at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, was she right in the end? Is the grand scheme of it all?
Well, it's debatable. We can get into it whenever we get to that part, but it's also like it wasn't directly Loki, so but
No, but yeah, but I mean, what did he choose to do? Right?
yeah. But so leading up to that, so yeah, we can move over a little bit more. So we get this big revelation. Actually, Brawley, you can explain it if you want with the Kablooey thing.
Right. So, going back to the first interaction with the variant, or when he went in and attacked the church, I believe it was in the 1800s. There was a candy given to this little kid, and Mobius went up to the kid and said, "Who gave you this?" And the kid pointed at this, I guess mural
Mephisto.
yeah, basically Mephisto. Was basically a stained glass image of the devil,
Wait.
and
I
or
wanna.
it could be Loki or something.
It's Loki. It's supposed
Right,
to be
Loki.
No, I
Loki.
know the
Yeah,
joke is Mephisto
yeah,
because of one
yeah.
of
I heard.
it.
Yeah. I heard that was like a thing that like when the episode came out, like the first episode, that everybody jumped on
Yeah,
Mephisto.
everyone was just like,
Right.
"Yo, it's Mephisto," because I mean, it's a meme
Yeah.
at this
It looked
point
like
because
it.
everybody in WandaVision, like every YouTube channel, was just like Mephisto, Mephisto, Mephisto.
And
But
so
yeah.
the candy that he had was a kablooey. And so kablooey was only made in the United States for 4 years between 2047 and 2051. And in 2050, so basically it got Mobius and Loki together. They said, hey, let's look for apocalypses. Now they got the green light and stuff. And they said, let's look for apocalypse in this time frame, because the person that is giving the candy is probably hiding out during this time. So they narrowed it down. Well, Loki found the answer, and he found out it was this big superstore in 2050 during a hurricane. Like a hurricane blows it all out, and wipes the area around there. So they decided to go there and find what this variant. The variant's obviously there, and they separated to two teams. Loki goes with the guards, the lady that Johnny Hatch doesn't like. and Mobius goes on the other team, and it's kind of like one of those things where Mobius is given one last chance. Don't mess this up, and keep Loki, safeguarded, close guarded. Don't trust him, and he really doesn't trust him. But it was weird because he wanted to give him his daggers, and the lady was like, "Nope, not gonna happen." And so when they're into the superstore, and now Loki has his powers, right? They were all soaking wet. It's a hurricane going on outside. They're all wet, and he goes inside and then uses his magic to dry himself.
Yeah.
And that's when the power went out, and people were they separated, and that's when they got to finally meet. Well, he got to finally meet Lady Loki.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot that builds up to it. We get a lot of like back and forth dialogue between Loki and it's actually there's this one person who's standing and he has his hands up and he's like, "Oh, I'm here buying plants," and then she leans over to Loki and she's just like, "Is that something you would do? Do you think that's you?" And then he's just like, "I'd probably be wearing a suit, but maybe." And so she goes over and she ends up getting like her hand or arm grabbed by this person, and you see that his eyes glow green, and then they transfer over to the guard. And so we start getting it back and forth between Loki and this other Loki. And yeah, it's basically just a discussion saying like, "Oh, haha," like they're basically just kind of like teasing and also making fun of each other and kind of belittling each other and questioning each other all at once. And it's just like, it's funny seeing similar mannerisms. Like you have like the head tilt and the big smile that Loki does, and this variant Loki does the same thing first, but in the body of this guard. And yeah, they're just questioning each other, saying like, "Oh, I can't believe you're actually working for the TVA," and he's like, "I'm working for me, not for them." And we have this big back and forth. And while this is happening, Mobius and his team is in the shelter area, going through all the people who are there in the shelter, just trying to
Because they obviously know that the variant's there, but they gotta find out where the variant is or who it is, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. We touched on it earlier, but during the My Hero scene in the carnival, this time variant Loki actually kidnapped one of the agents.
Yeah, Agent 20. She had like C20 or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
C20. And we're trying to figure out. I mean, it's not really known why. This is the first time that the variant, because in that scene, that Loki variant, kind of mesmerizes the person, touches them. Green goes into their eyes, so you obviously know he already has the soldier or the Agent 20
Under control,
under his control, and she's fighting the other TVA agents, and then he knocks her out, or the Loki variant knocks him out, and takes her with her. And so we're kind of like, why? And so Mobius finds this agent in kind of like where all the other people are being held up in this area, like I guess shelter area, and she just keeps saying it was real, 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 and they're trying to figure out like what are you talking about? What's real? Yeah. And so while all that's happening, Loki is fighting or has met up with this Loki variant controlling other people. So there was the plant guy, then they take over the agent
Randy.
And there was Randy.
Yeah.
And then there was this this kind of like southern, big kind of dude.
This trucker guy.
Yeah, kind of like
I mean, something that I wanted to bring up about Mobius when he was in the shelter. We saw it twice now, because they do end up. I know we're kind of jumping around a little bit, but just real quick, they do end up testing Loki's theory in Italy. There's a volcano erupting, and he's like, "I'm gonna go."
Oh, that scene was so good.
Yeah, he's like, "I'm gonna go, fuck around a little bit, see what happens." and so he convinces Mobius to take him out, and to Italy. And what was the time frame? Like something BC, like 790 BC or something like that.
Yeah.
And so this volcano erupts, and but before it happens, Loki goes out there speaking their language, saying, like, "I'm from the future, and I'm freeing these goats," and like all this other stuff, and he's popping off. And then the volcano goes off, and everyone's scattering, running around. But the whole time, Mobius is looking at his little device, and he's like, "Yeah, there's zero variant energy, so it's like we can't tell that you're here. We can't tell that you're doing anything different." Um, and so we got that tested out. But while that was happening, Mobius was saying like, "Oh, it's in bad taste," like because Loki was saying, "Oh, they're gonna die anyway, so like let's just fuck with them." And Mobius was like, "No, we can't just do that. Let's just do something small." And then we get another like small moment like that in the shelter. This guard walks up and he like shoves this guy away, who's saying that he was hoping that they showed up with a helicopter or something. And Mobius says like, "Hey, like calm down. This guy's scared." And he's like, "Yeah, he should be scared. They're gonna die."
They're gonna die.
And so I feel like, though I could be wrong, but me personally, I feel like moments like those, while Loki is also bringing up questions to Mobius and like challenging him on his wit, I feel like those are small cookie crumbs to where Mobius might have. It's one of those things where like we've seen it in movies and in games, I'm sure, but like it's a worker bee who gets to like see the other side, like to see the grass is greener on the other side. He like kind of breaks away from his routine. And I feel like that might be the case with what's going on with Mobius here. Like he might be, "Oh yeah, I'm a worker bee and I've always done things and this is how it's always been," but now this guy's testing me and he's actually making me question things. And so I want to keep my eye on that. I could be wrong. I could be just looking into it a little bit more, but I feel like maybe there could be a little bit more to Mobius beyond where we leave off with him at the end of this episode. But Gus, how did you feel about the Loki and Loki variant interaction? And you can lead us into the reveal too, but what do you think?
Okay, so after Loki chases down all these like people that are being controlled by the Loki variant, Loki this whole time is like trying to convince this other one, convince the variant that, hey, I'm doing this for us. Like, we need to be a team. I want to overthrow the TVA. And the variant Loki, or the superior Loki, right? Like the superior Loki, basically tells him like, I don't want that. Like that's not even on my list of things that I want to do. So like, and at that point, when for me at least, it was kind of like, oh shit, there's something like this person doesn't want to control time. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on? So eventually, anyway, they chase him down, or Loki chases down these people being controlled, and they just have this back and forth where it seems like Loki's just really trying to uncover who this other Loki is and figure out what they want, because the other Loki doesn't want anything to do with our Loki. And eventually, there's a big reveal where you find out that the superior Loki is actually Lady Loki, or presumably Lady Loki. We don't really know for sure yet, because I mean, with anything involving Loki to begin with, it could literally be anything.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And I actually, to me, this is the biggest point in the entire show for me, and it actually made me like pop off super hard. I think I was a little bit more excited for this than like a lot of people, or at least people that know what that like really means, especially with the way things are going now with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Things are starting to really like unfold. Lady Loki was a big key, well, not like a big key element, but Lady Loki was a part of this team that was run by Norman Osborn called the Cabals, and it was a team that was formed after the Secret Invasion, which is going to be a Disney Plus TV show. if you don't know what Secret Invasion is, it's when the Skrulls try to take over Earth. Essentially, what happens is Norman Osborn becomes reformed and makes like this thing called the Dark Illuminati, which has Emma Frost, Doctor Doom, and Namor. Which is weird because we have the Secret Invasion TV show. There's a new Disney just acquired the rights to Fantastic Four and X-Men. So a Dark Reign timeline is possible if that is Lady Loki. Also, just with
hold on, to jump in real quick, we have somebody in the chat. King Dint says, "Hey guys, the Spanish language of the show credits, they credit Lady Loki as Sylvie. So she is likely the second Enchantress Sylvie Lushton, who was created by Loki." So it's interesting. That's a nice catch. Thank you for stopping by, Kingdom.
That's a good catch.
Yeah, because it's not definitive, of course, but we do have her with the Loki horns at the end, and we get that sort of like, understanding that she has some sort of connection to him. So yeah, that's really interesting.
That's really interesting. It was a very big moment because like it feels like one of those things. It also does feel like one of those things where the Marvel just has this thing where they know that like people that are super into like the Marvel universe period, they throw little small things like that, and that just opens up like
like a
giant,
bunch of pathways.
like
and it's fitting for this show because basically we've learned about branching timelines and the Nexus events, and we know this should be leading up to Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. And I actually feel like a lot of what happens in this show is also going to be affected, like maybe Spider-Man No Way Home.
I was gonna say I think it's gonna
maybe
affect Spider-Man
No
too.
Way Home is he can't get back home because the timeline's fucked, like something like that. And it's it actually makes me think, like, for those of you who saw the end credits scene for Spider-Man Far From Home, we know that his identity gets revealed, and like I had such a problem with that because it felt like Spider-Man is still super young and he's like barely learning to be Spider-Man, but he's already moved and progressed so much when it comes to his like experiences through the Marvel universe, and especially with like his identity and all that stuff. But we could honestly have a lot of that either reset or like messed with because of what's happening here. And
especially if like there was already been we already know that there's going to be that Spider-Man No Way Home is it definitely has something to do with the multiverse, considering that there's going to be all three different Spider-Mans, Green Goblin's coming out, Dr. Octopus is coming back,
and all that stuff.
Yeah, like everybody from all the movies are going to show up in this movie, at least, or some sort of cameo appearance. I don't know, but I mean, even just the thought of like putting all three different Spider-Mans from all three different multiverses or different universes coincides with all of this very, very, very hard.
So what I was talking before we hopped into the call to start this, Brawley wanted clarification, and this is what I came up with. But for those of you in the chat, if you want to chime in, feel free to do so. But for you guys, so we find out that all the vials, all these little like reset chamber vial things that Lady Loki has been taking, she has them wired up all along this like shop that they're in, and basically the big moment in the episode, the big cliffhanger moment, is that she sets them off. And I thought that, like, I was like, at first I was like, okay, are they all just gonna reset this area all at once? Is that gonna cause like some big, like, literally a hole in that sacred timeline where it can't be fixed or something? Like, I was really curious at what was gonna happen, but instead small little portals open underneath each individual one, and she is sending them to different points in time and
In time.
different areas of the world and universe. And so to me, what I think, what I gathered and what I feel like these reset vials, how they work, is whenever we've seen them use, it's because they're resetting a moment that took place in time that shouldn't have happened. So like they're getting rid of, you know, some of their agents.
They're getting rid of their footprints.
Yeah, they're getting rid of
And
their footprints, and they're getting rid of like their any sort of understanding that something happened there that shouldn't have happened. So
they show it in the episode. There's contrasts, like if when especially in the beginning where they go to the Renaissance.
yeah.
And right after they go to the Renaissance and they pop the thing, and that was like the first time you get to see actually
It's
what
not like,
happened.
Yeah, it's not like the tent goes away. It's just the shit inside, like the TVA armor is what's going away and all that stuff. And so,
and then right after that, they show a monitor with the timeline on it, and then it shows the split from when
it's like
the
shrinking
TVA showed up, and then it's shrinking back down. So basically, the TVA uses it to erase time up to the point that they arrive.
And so what I'm thinking is like all these portals that opened up these vials to go through them. What Lady Loki is doing is, like, say the example that Brawley gave, and that I'm gonna springboard off of here, is basically we know in the timeline of history, like, JFK gets shot, right? So what I feel that Lady Loki's doing is she's sending a vial back, and say the vial that she sent back ends up in that car. So she resets and removes JFK from that timeline, and then that causes the disturbance in a different way, where like he's supposed to get shot, and then everyone's like, well, where'd the president go? He's not here anymore. And so like I feel like that's how she's fucking with the timeline, and like instances like that.
So I feel like that's a good observation, and it does work. I feel like that's what she's doing, but I feel like the vials are working in a way that isn't the same. So what we know so far about these reset cube things is that they reset up to a certain point. They don't continuously just reset the world, right? Like, it's not like there is definitely a point where it stops resetting.
Yeah.
So far what we know is that the point that it stops resetting is it, because the TVA is the only one who's used it. So outside of Lady Loki, quote unquote. So we know that that those vials go off and they reset all the way back to the point of them showing up. So they reset to the timeline as if they had never shown up in the first place, right? When you throw a vial in an area where the timeline is good, how does that affect the timeline? Yeah. That's the question I'm having, because these are supposed to be resetting anomalies, right? They're supposed to be resetting occurrences that weren't supposed to happen in the first place. But what happens if you throw them off in a timeline where the timeline is concurrent, right? Like where things are going where they're supposed to be going, and you still set that off?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at with this JFK thing. Like you're getting rid of JFK. That was supposed to happen, but you're getting rid of him, and like what how does that work? And I know at one point, I think it was at the Renaissance part, one of them says like, oh, how does it because the guard behind Loki and Mobius says like, oh, what do these do? And he's pointing to the vial thing, and Loki says like, oh, it resets, whatever the anomaly, whatever's happening around here. But somebody says like basically like it vaporizes people. So like
Loki said that.
Yeah.
Mobius was the one that said, it resets it, because Loki was the one that asked. And Mobius told him, yeah, it basically resets the timeline for any blah 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 blah. I can't remember exactly what he said. And then Loki said, oh, so you mean it basically just destroys everything around it? And he was like, and then Mobius was like, yeah, in in a shorter
in
term
a
or
way, yeah.
yeah.
And because yeah, that's what I also felt like. What was the threat in the first episode was the baton, those little baton sticks, basically
What do they call
vaporize
them?
things.
Yeah, what is it called? It's like a there's like a term for it, right? Being plugged or something, right? Like
Yeah, it
I
was,
can't remember what it's
like
called.
it was like purged or pulsed or something like that.
Yeah, it was some weird thing.
Because yeah, we even saw it with the little cabinet with the Infinity Stones. Like she swung and hit the cabinet, and then it just
It
got,
just
yeah, it got
disintegrates.
disintegrated. So like,
So maybe they're like so maybe those things are like mini versions of like the grenade, like, and I guess those are grenades,
yeah, I guess those are
right?
just
Like
more. Those are more like area of effect sort of deals, and this is a more like
Yeah, it's kind of like an AOE kind of thing, you know.
singular
yeah,
instance. But
yeah.
I definitely, I don't know. This episode, I feel like there's so it's so crazy because as much as I loved Falcon and Winter Soldier, I never really felt compelled to watch an episode again. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was always like, okay, that was a great episode, and I want to see more of the story. But for these episodes, episode 1 and 2, like it's a show that I kind of want to just go back and, like, you know, just really absorb everything again, because I feel like there's definitely cookie crumbs in these episodes. Like I've got like two things that I'm thinking about, and one of them is the whole Miss Minute thing, because we get this one scene, small scene with Loki and Miss Minute, and he's like, "Are you here? Like, are you an actual hologram? Are you a recording, or are you like, can you talk to me?" And she's like, "Yeah, a little bit of both." So I'm
Oh no,
really,
he says, are you real or are you a recording?
yeah.
Like or like, yeah, he's like, oh yeah, a little bit of both.
Yeah, and so I feel like Miss Minute, I don't know, there's something about Miss Minute that just feels like there's more to her, and there's more to like that sort of like, I feel like Miss Minute is is like a, if I were to take a guess, I feel like Miss Minute is a a seed that overlooks for the watchers, like for the time keepers to kind of like see what's going on in a weird, like, you know, background way. But I also think it's really weird that we also get another scene with Loki where he is asking for these TVA files of like, hey, can I get the files for the creation of TVA? Oh, it's classified. Oh, well, how about the beginning of everything? And she's like, oh, it's classified. It's like, okay, how about the ending? And she's like, classified. And so like, it's really,
You know they're gonna give it to Loki. They're gonna give him
no.
all
But what
these
I'm saying
files.
is, if they're classified, I just feel like there's something about Mobius's whole jet ski thing. And then also that, you know how in episode 1 that guy was like, "Oh, I've never seen a fish before." I feel like we have to believe that the timekeepers aren't like doing this for the greater good or something.
No,
I
mean
definitely I get that feeling too. I feel like
that's
there's
exactly how it is. That's exactly what this is the reason why Loki is this is the name of the show. What he's the mischief or the god of mischief and chaos.
Uh huh.
And what is the opposite of chaos? Order.
Yeah.
Timekeepers in time, the TVA,
Yeah.
all about order. That's what they're about.
I just feel like
And
there's something about the TVA. Like, I feel like all these employees and all these people who are like, oh,
it's not something that is wrong, and maybe there is a small um hint of them doing it for on another reason, you know, an ulterior motive, if you will.
uh-huh.
There might be a hint of it, but it's not that. It's mainly the fact that Loki is someone that represents the idea that nothing should be, you know, set in stone.
Yeah, he says
And,
it to
and
Mobius. He says like free will or whatever.
right, and nothing should be and Mobius is kind of like that. Well, I just do what I'm told, and we don't need to think about it too much. And you know, he doesn't want to take that next step out of it because he knows that he feels it's pointless to go against what's already been foretold.
Yeah, and see
And
that's
so,
where I'm getting at, is I feel like he feels that way, and a lot of these workers and all the people who are with the TVA, I feel like, you know, what if they were like just people plucked from time and like just basically brainwashed or just like used.
But it's not something like where like, oh well, maybe Loki's right, or maybe he's doing something that's
Yeah,
right.
I'm not leaning towards that. I'm leaning more towards like there's this order, this like false. Like, think of it like Halo and the prophets.
It's something like that,
Like oh,
or
and like
like
the freaking those old elder guys that are like basically like, oh, we're not actually gods and we can't let them know that, so we're gonna like.
right.
I feel like it's something like that where it's like they are trying to instill this sort of like greater power by creating this whole TVA thing to like justify it all. So I don't know, that's it's just like I just feel like Marvel is so good at leaving these like small little cookie crumbs in these episodes that could lead to some huge reveal later, and I feel like that might be one where it's like the time there is free will and there is no end to everything, but maybe they have these capabilities because of the technology that they have at this time or something. I don't know. There's so many questions, and that's why this show is so crazy because
Well,
it's like
I mean, it's gonna be to me. My theory is this show is not gonna have like a direct end.
oh for sure.
This one is definitely going to be left unresolved. It's basically the story of Mobius and how Loki is changing his views. How the TVA is wrong, or how the TVA shouldn't be the be. It's not like it's wrong. It's more of Mobius's outlook of it all, not just accepting it. Go and be on your jet ski, right? I'm pretty sure we're gonna get that scene. I'm pretty sure that what Lady Loki is doing isn't something bad. I think when she is, especially when she tells Loki, it's not all about you, right? She's probably referring to whoever she's trying to help.
Yeah.
By dropping all these things, maybe she's trying to correct it. Now, it's probably a bad way of doing it, but it's her way of doing it.
Yeah.
To correct some things that shouldn't have been done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe correcting Thanos from, snapping everybody, right? Or maybe it's the destruction of her planet, or any planet, or maybe she is affected by Asgard, getting crushed by Ragnarok, by Surtur, and she wants to fix that, but you can't, right? Like what they're saying is right. You can't just go back and do it because it's gonna screw up the sacred timeline.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think we're gonna learn that going with because obviously it's gonna go into Loki's perspective, and we're gonna be following this lady Loki, and we're gonna find out what's her plan, why is she doing all this.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. But see how it goes.
So I mean, I guess to round this all off, like for me, I think the show is really showing the appeal for me in this show is the fact that there's no clear winner in anything. Like Loki could have his plan of like trying to take over the timekeepers and stuff, but like it's appealing in the sense that like since we're dealing with all this huge amounts of power with time and negating power and not being able to use them when you're in that area, there's so much that has you questioning everything, and it's perfect for a show that's about Loki because that's his nature, that's his character. It's like very deceiving, very questionable. It's you always like gotta watch your back sort of deal. And so to round out this discussion, basically the way it ends is Lady Loki sends all of those vials out over the universe. I think I don't know if it's contained to just.
So I wanted it. I was waiting for you to say that.
Yeah.
Because I just saw a video where it showed the timeline splitting.
Yeah.
And there's I'll link it to you guys after this chat. But basically it's that screen that they're looking at, what's her name? The one that we couldn't, Rowena or
Rovana
or whatever, where she's staring at the screen and she sees all the timelines split.
Yeah.
Okay, it has a list of places that pop up.
Yeah, I saw a couple. It was like New York and like a couple other ones.
yeah, so far what's been confirmed is Ego, Vormir, Xandar, Asgard, Skitar, um let's see,
We're
Titan.
gonna see fucking Black Widow in this show.
Yeah, at Titan also. So these
Nah, I
cube
don't think so.
things, these cube things that she sent out, um, they aren't just on Earth. They're everywhere in the universe.
Okay, man, I'm putting my bet down right now. We're gonna see Black Widow in this show.
I believe it.
I think it's gonna get weird like that, but we'll see. But yeah, so she sends out these vials, and at the end of the episode, she looks at Loki and she opens up a portal, and then she waves to him goodbye, and walks through it, but the portal stays. And again, this is a great moment because it's one of those things where it's like Thor has said it to him before. He's like, "Oh, you're always like awful, brother," or like you're so awful, and it's because Loki in those moments where it's like he has to make a split decision, he has to make a call. He always goes with like, "Okay, I'm gonna worry about myself," and so like he ends up making the Mobius is running and he's like, Loki, wait, Loki. He's like, he's running all the way across the room to him, and then Loki makes the decision, like, because Loki didn't really do anything wrong. He didn't take over the girl, the female guard. He didn't cause all these issues. The variant did, but he ends up making himself out to be a problem because he leaves. He ends up running through the portal, and it closes right after he walks in, and then Mobius just says like, "Damn it!" like super loud, and it's tough because this whole episode you have this like great chemistry between the two characters, and they keep talking about trust, and even as soon as they got to this little Alabama supermarket or whatever, Loki says like, "Oh, I've got to earn you guys' trust, like trust me," and Mobius says like, "Why is it always the people who you don't trust saying trust me?" You know.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure enough, it sucks because Mobius, it's like I don't know if it's a moment of weakness or if it's just like he gave him the benefit of the doubt, or he was really feeling that sort of energy from Loki helping out figure out this like plot hole in their system. But it sucks to see that, yeah, he kind of got burned by Loki in this sense. But yeah, that's pretty much how the episode ends, and that's the cliffhanger part, is that we don't know where they're going or how it's gonna, escalate from here.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to see what happens. I wonder if, because I wonder I wonder if what happened, if this was the creation of the multiverse.
Yeah, it could be. It could be like
Yeah.
Like,
this is like what starts
yeah,
the whole multiverse of madness shit.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just rough. It's hard to say because Loki's supposed to be 6 episodes. So are we gonna have 4 more episodes of this multiverse craziness, and then we're still gonna have it in the Doctor Strange movie, or is it Doctor
You
Strange
know,
gonna start like the start of the Doctor Strange movie's gonna be at the part of episode 2 of Loki, like in tandem?
Hmm. No, I mean, I'm sure we're gonna get. I mean, the arc with Lady Loki is gonna get solved. That's the thing we're gonna find out. But I don't think it's gonna end. I think it's gonna continue on. This is gonna be a whole universal thing, a whole phase for me.
yeah, I think so too.
Well, I mean, that's pretty much all I've got to say on it for now. I definitely I'm gonna want to watch this again within the week, and it's crazy. It's just it's so cool how like for all 3 shows, like WandaVision, everyone was like, oh, to Wanda and Vision, like they might have some interesting stuff, and then they had this whole thing go on, and it was a lot of fun, and then especially with Falcon and Winter Soldier, same thing. It was like a show that you kind of said, okay, you know what, this could be fun in its own way, but then it was like monumentally like, you know, great storytelling with these characters. And so now like Loki's just opening all these doors, and we're getting so much like just everything that you knew about how things worked in the Marvel universe is just being fucking flipped on its head right now.
That's really, and you know what? I just thought of something too. It's this that was like there was hella foreshadowing in the show.
Hmm.
When we talked, I think we talked about it earlier, but now that we've talked about the ending, that candy was called kablooey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kablooey is another word for saying like,
Like bomb.
kaboom, yeah,
Yeah.
bomb. So I think there's definitely gonna be. I think you're right, Vash. I think this show is definitely gonna be one of those where, especially if you kind of want a better understanding, there's definitely gonna be like things that we have to pay attention to that we might have missed the first watch through that we might have to go back and rewatch.
Yep. But all right. Well, yeah. I guess we'll do what we usually do. Just real quick, if you guys want to give your ratings, for me, I'll probably give this one an 8 out of 10. I think there was some moments that were just like really, really great dialogue between characters, and I think the only points I ducked down was like probably the fight scene with the different characters fighting Loki, because Loki kind of just didn't really use his powers. He was just like he summoned a Roomba and then he like protected himself with a Roomba, but then got flipped by some trucker dude. And it's just like, at the end of the day, he's fought frost giants and he's a god. So it's like, he caught Hawkeye's arrow in midair. So like he should be a little bit more menacing especially since he has his powers. But that was probably the only like lower part of the show, was just the whole struggle and tussle between the trucker guy and Loki. But yeah, I'd
Yeah.
probably give it like an 8.
I would say 9 out of 10. It was really, really good.
Damn, that was a big step up from your episode 1 review.
Episode 1 was just kind of like, it was just very recap heavy. So it's kind of like, it would be really good if you didn't know what was going on, or you were very new to the series, or very new to the community, whatever, or, not the, but the whole Marvel universe. It was just very kind of reminding us of who the characters are, what they went through, things like that. I thought this one was really good. The only critique I have was the whole carnival scene. I didn't understand the music for it, but other than maybe it's hinting that Lady Loki is the hero in this, and she's fighting against the evil TVA and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought it was a really, really good episode.
Well, I wasn't here to rate the first episode, but I'd give the first episode a 7 out of 10. It was really solid, good start to the series. Um, as a fan of the series already, and I really, 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 really enjoy. I'm not a fan of Loki per se, like as a Marvel fan, but Tom Middleton's portrayal of Loki and the way the Marvel Cinematic Universe writes Loki has always been interesting to me. So I was always super excited for this to come out. Um, so the first episode was really solid. This episode, I definitely give it an 8 out of 10. They definitely stepped up the game. The story is starting to unfold a little bit more. There's things that are happening in the show so far that directly affect the rest of the MCU as a whole. It gives me very, very much of that same vibe that I got from watching WandaVision, which was like, which was always the question of, is what's happening in this show going to affect the MCU and the recent phase, and if it does, by how much? And I'm already getting that kind of same vibe here, especially with the ending of this episode. So I'm already at the edge of my seat, like trying to figure out, is this where the multiverse starts? Is that Lady Loki? Like, or is this Sylvie? Like, what's gonna happen with Loki? Is he gonna stay the same? Is he gonna like change? Like, who are the timekeepers? Are they evil? Are they good? Like, do they affect the rest of the universe? Do they step in? Like, so
Yeah.
it's just
for sure.
all these things about the show that make you really question whether or not the actions in the show are going to either heavily affect the rest of the MCU and like the story as it progresses, or if it's just going to be confined to this series. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the only way we could find out is just by keep watching, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, awesome. I think the last little thing I want to say is I've been noticing in these episodes the OST and the soundtrack is pretty good. Like
Yeah,
they've
it's
got
pretty
some,
good.
like besides the you know I need a hero part, all the like little quirky like background themes that are going on whenever they're talking and whenever they're like figuring things out. It's pretty cool. The soundtrack for the show's not too bad. Definitely, if you guys end up rewatching it, or if anybody in the chat, if you guys end up rewatching the episodes, like try to pay attention a little bit to like the background songs that play during certain parts of the show. It's pretty good. But yeah, with that, I guess we're done for this discussion. Again, thank you guys for joining in the chat if you were here. And thank you, Broly and Goss, for talking with me here at 4 in the morning. And I think it's even later for Goss now. So
Yeah, it's 5 o'clock already.
So
For content, dude.
yeah, for content. But all right, everybody, you guys take care. We will see you next week with the next episode. And I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Loki, and then what? It's Black Widow, and then it's Doctor Strange, or is it
Spider-Man?
Yeah, it's one of
Yeah.
those two. But yeah, we'll be checking all of those out as they come out and all that good stuff. But if you're watching this on YouTube, we do stream this live as soon as the show airs. So basically, the show comes out at 2 a.m. Central Time for us in Texas. And then we have the discussion as soon as we finish watching it at 3 in the morning. So if you want to swing by, it's at twitch.tv/Vash. And yeah, we'll go ahead and see you guys in the next video. But until then, later. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Bye.